We're here today at Age of Aquariums. This is one of the most incredible natural fish stores here in Southern California. They've got amazing display aquascapes and so many fascinating fish and projects to see. Kristen's going to take us through the entire shop today. Can't wait to give you a tour around. A lot of cool stuff to see throughout this video.
This tank is a 750 gallon, it's a curved bow front acrylic tank. It actually used to be in one of our service clients' shop that was like a costume store. And when they went out of business or they moved and we took over the tank, brought it in here, and we used to have sharks in it for a few years until it became illegal in California, and then it changed it over to a natural freshwater aquarium. Tons of all live plants in here, tons of different types of tetras, angelfish, rainbow fish. We even have like a few breeding pairs. There's a pair of pearl gouramis and some Bolivian rams in here. Because it's such a large tank, it kind of is self-sustaining, takes care of itself a lot. We blast it with light and CO2, and that's really all the plants need.
There's a ton of plants in the back. These are really tall too.
People don't realize how deep of a tank it is because we have a huge piece. All of that moss is on top of a piece of driftwood in there. You can't even see the wood anymore. But there's tons of plants back there, and the fish love to hide in them.
What kind of rainbow fish are these?
These rainbows, there's a few different types, the Bosomanis and the turquoise rainbows. The big Bosomanis, they're, I'm gonna say maybe about 5 years old now in there. The turquoise we recently just added in there, and they're starting to color up. Can't wait for the males to get a little bit bigger.
Do they ever breed?
The rainbow fish, I've never seen them breed, although I do see males often do like mating rituals in there, where they're kind of making a nest, kind of try to court the females.
Yeah.
The angelfish have actually bred in here a few times. They lay eggs, and we get them to a pretty decent stage of wigglers, and then it's pretty hard to keep track of them after that. Those are probably about 3 to 4 years old. Maybe a little bit less than that. We used to keep discus in here a while ago, and we would sell out of here, but it became kind of difficult to catch the discus out, so.
How often do you normally feed this tank? Like, there's a lot of fish in here.
At least once a day, usually about twice a day. We feed usually frozen bloodworms, but we have a variety of flakes, pellets, bottom feeder tabs in there for the cory cats.
Do you do baby brine?
We don't typically do baby brine shrimp in here, just because the fish are a lot larger. They prefer a little bit bigger pieces.
Yeah. And are these longfin serpent tetras?
Yes. Yeah, the high-fin surface.
Most of them are pretty small.
Yeah, and so normally when we get them from the wholesale, they are usually a little bit smaller, and that's why we kind of have these displays to show what potentially your fish could look like if if you grow them out, keep them healthy.
There's also a couple of these really big tiger lotuses in the back.
Yeah.
Do they take a long time to grow?
Yes, and those tiger lotus, like we've had the tiger lotus in there since maybe 11, 12 years now, and so the same bulbs, and they kind of grow out, and we remove a little bit, and keep growing out,
They could get really big, like they could just grow throughout the tank.
Because the tank is high light, they stay pretty low, but if you had lower light, they would send leaves and runners up to the surface to get more light. That's Rotala indica, that really tall plant back there. We occasionally pull it out, replant it. Same with the moss. What we do is, as it grows, we pull it out and we sell it. So we portion it, and it kind of makes up for us spending the time and money into keeping the tank. We're able to make some of that back by selling out some of the plants that grow in here. These plants are not for sale in here, but these are common plants that we typically always have in our display tanks for sale.
Right.
So we typically almost always have the hydro compact. We typically always have the Java fern, the moss, the Rotala indica, dark red Ludwigia, and then some jungle val back there.
How do you do maintenance on this tank? Like, this is pretty big.
It's actually pretty simple. We just run a hose into the sink and we drain about 1 to 200 gallons at a time. And then we fill it up directly from our RODI line. So it's reverse osmosis deionized water. So it naturally comes out to a pH of probably around 6. It's pretty acidic, but that's what the plants like. So we keep it pretty acidic in here so the plants can. That's pretty much the maintenance. We do that about every 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's nice. And do you run a canister filter on this?
Yes, there's 2 or 3 canister filters on here. Then we have a big CO2 tank for adding carbon dioxide into the water. And we really don't have issues with the algae because we add so much CO2, but we also have some large algae eaters like these red tail flying fox in there.
Do you have any other maintenance fish?
We do. There's a school of cories in here. They're probably in the back right now. And then we also have a few autocinklets in here.
Do they ever have any problems with the angelfish or rainbows?
There are not typically issues with any of the fish in here, except when a pair of angels are breeding and they are really territorial. But it's such a large tank that there's plenty of room for them to move around. It's nothing that's gonna really affect the population in there. It's a power head, like weight maker. So it's just a power head we aim at the surface just to diffuse out some of the CO2 just in case there's too much in the water. Just adding a little bit of surface agitation in there.
Do you have any kind of root tabs in for these plants?
No root tabs in here. Most of the nutrients are just from feeding the fish. Like I said, it's been set up for a long time here, so it's pretty self-sustaining at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty natural. Just with fish waste.
Yep, yeah.
That's it.
Just with the fish waste, there's enough nutrients for them. We do occasionally test it, and if it needs anything, we do dose it. We usually use the CChem additives, so all of the Flourish line.
And then I can also see a really big Siamese algae eater in the back.
Yeah.
Is that something you've had for a long time?
Yeah, probably about 5-6 years. They grow pretty quick, yeah. And they get pretty big, yeah.
I have one that's like 4 inches maybe.
Uh-huh.
But that one's pretty huge.
The curved glass does make them look a little bit larger, but I don't know if you can see some of the cardinal tetras back there. There's probably about 30 back there, but even those guys are a lot larger than you would normally see them. These are our other displays that we have. They're all Ultra Nature System tanks. They're rimless, and the mitered edges, low iron glass, they look really clear. And we kind of encourage our customers to go with like a natural aquascape look, so that's kind of what we focus on back here. We don't always sell the fish in here, but occasionally we do. So like right now we do sell the angelfish that are in here. I'll sell the rosy tetras that are in here. And so we have a variety of live plants in each of these. Most of them have the CO2 little diffuser in there. So we have a ton of different fish and plants in here. We have the angelfish. We have these little doctor fish, the garas. They're super fun. They'll come in clean your hands.
Oh, these are one of the fish that just eat your skin, right?
Right. In, like Southeast Asia, you'll see them in like fish spas where they use these fish. Not always humane, but they're really good cleaner fish.
What do you do to fertilize this tank?
This tank is all with UNS contra soil, so it has tons of nutrients in there. It is pretty old now, so I do occasionally put root tabs in these 2 tanks. Not a whole lot, but just to supplement. We'll go over some of the plants in here. We have tons of crypts. We have some hydro compact, pennywort, hydro pinnatifida. We have swords back there. This is crypt balancea, Ludwigia in there, then some other tall hydro willow in the back.
All pretty low tech.
These are all pretty easy, yeah.
This is a deep substrate too, like it really helps.
Absolutely. So there's actually a layer of crushed lava rock under here. That's probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And then on top of that, we added all the soil. So super deep layer of substrate in there, but it allows for the plants to kind of really root down and take off in there.
And do you have any kind of cleanup crew for this tank besides the panic guard?
We do. We have some cories in there. We also have some bristlenose plecos in there. I think there are a few Simonses in this one as well. Those feathery ones in the middle, that's Mirio, green Mirio.
Do they turn red?
There is a variety that turns like a bronze red color, but this is the green variety. Those long crypts in the back are crypt balancea. They grow kind of like a jungle val instead of like a crypt. Yeah, but they're nice, long, flowy background plants. Most of these are pretty easy as long as you have decent light in there. A lot of them don't require the CO2, but the CO2 does help cut back on algae and it helps them grow a little bit faster. That's why we add the CO2. We add a little bit of surface agitation at the surface just to dissipate any excess CO2 in the tank, so that way the fish can add a little bit of oxygen into the water without affecting the pH of the tank. Middle tank here, some really cool sunburst angelfish. And this one, we do sell the angels out of here pretty regularly, so I kind of wanted to keep it easy. Not a whole lot of escape in here, that way we can catch them out easy when customers come in. A few different varieties of angels in here. I get the veil tails as like an assorted pack, but you can see some of the koi ones in here. and then some of the blue pinoy. And then we also have these sunburst angels.
Do you get these from a breeder?
These I do get from a local breeder. I also occasionally buy from one local wholesale. We really try to minimize the amount of places that we buy. That way we can just trust where we're getting our fish from.
Yeah.
I only really buy angels from 2 different people, and one of them is the local breeder, Rhea, and she breeds in her home, and she uses Southern California water, so by the time they get here, we don't really have to do much acclimation for them.
So is the pH around 7.5, 7.6?
In these tanks, it's probably around 7.
7?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty low.
Just because we're adding the CO2, it brings it down a bit.
What do you have for the cleanup crew for this tank?
In this tank, there are a few siamensis in here, some larger red-tail siamensis. I don't really see them, though. And then occasionally, when we get like customer donations like this large Buenos Aires tetra, we'll throw in the large customer donations. Can't really put them with other smaller fish, especially if they've been alone for a while, so they get upgraded to our display tanks.
And do you have root tabs in all these tanks?
I do occasionally use root tabs in these tanks. There is quite a bit of soil in here, but it is getting kind of to the point where it is getting kind of old now. It's about 3 years old, which is where I would normally want to replace it. So I'm kind of putting that off and just adding root tabs as needed to the tanks. What happens too is the soil starts to get crushed, and so it starts to turn dusty, which just makes it a lot harder to clean. So
yeah. What kind of light do you guys use for this?
These are Twin Star lights, high output LEDs, full spectrum lights. And we have lifeguard lights on this tank, and then we have Kessels on that tank. And so they're all considered high output LEDs with the full spectrum.
Yeah.
Made for growing plants.
And then I can also see this bamboo plant, Lucky Bamboo, is that?
Yep, and that one's pretty easy. We just kind of throw it in there. As long as the leaves are able to come out of the water, it grows pretty easy. And it's not super quick growing, but it does help remove a little bit of the excess nutrients in there. We have this huge giant sword plant in there. I think it's a red Reuben sword.
That's like a mother plant, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably about 2 years old now.
They can get pretty big.
So it takes up most of the space, but it makes it easy to catch the fish out, so.
Yeah.
This one also pretty low tech.
Was this Rotala from the larger tank over there?
I don't think that is from, I think it's just one that, we get plants every Thursday evening, so we can constantly kind of rotate our stock of what we have in our display tanks.
And do you guys do any CO2 for these?
Yes, we do. So these 2 larger tanks have a CO2 cylinder, and we diffuse it down there through those are the Neo Aquaria diffusers, and they create a really, really fine mist of bubbles. So that way it diffuses into the water a little bit quicker. This smaller tank here that we have, this is the little 20-gallon UNS, and this is where we keep the more sensitive, delicate fish that we do sell. So we have some golden neons and green neon tetras in here, and we also have some chocolate gouramis.
These are kind of rare, aren't they?
They're not super common. I wouldn't say they're like quite rare, but I would call them uncommon. And they do really well in planted tanks. They don't get as large as a lot of other gouramis. Kind of like to pick at small stuff, so we feed them like baby brine shrimp and like small little pellets, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like how simple these are. All very low tech.
These tetras back here, we have the golden neon tetras and green neon tetras in here. They're a little bit more uncommon type of neon tetra. And so that's why we keep them back here. They're usually pretty small when we get them in. And they do really well in planted tanks and slightly acidic tanks. That's why we keep them back here. And we do sell out of here. They are popular for like people that have had tanks before. I wouldn't say like first time aquarists really like them, but people that have kept schools of tetras particularly like them because they're a little bit different color and they school pretty tightly compared to other tetras.
What about these floater plants?
This is Salvinia minima, and then we have a dwarf water lettuce here. And these are, we just throw them on the top of the tank, and then as it grows out, we portion it and sell it out.
I also noticed that this tank doesn't have a filter. Pretty low tech too.
It does have a canister filter on it, but yes, also very low tech. So we don't really have a lot of surface movement in this one. It just has a little canister filter and a heater in there. These tanks have been set up for about maybe 4 or 5 years now.
Do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, that's called an atomizer. Normally, when water evaporates, you have to heat it, right, to get it from a liquid to a gas. What this equipment is doing is it's vibrating very quickly at like a sonic level, and what that does is it vibrates the molecule so quickly that it turns from a liquid to a gas, And so that's what this is here. It's just water vapor, and it's cool. It doesn't harm anything. It doesn't burn anything. It adds a little bit of the humidity to the top of the tank.
Yeah.
So that way you could grow plants immersed or grow like house plants and keep it a little bit more humid. Mostly it's just aesthetic. So it just creates a cool mist cloud look.
It's a nice effect. Some people also like add a waterfall or something and it just creates.
Yes. This is from UNS, the atomizer from Ultimate Nature Systems. And they sell it like this, but I have seen people like create their own like waterfall effect with it, where you could use tubing and create like a hose for the vapor to run down. These are rosy tetras that we have in here. And so there's about 75 maybe a little bit more.
Wow.
Rosy tetras in here.
It's a pretty big school of them. Are these easy to keep?
Yeah, absolutely. They're easy to find, easy to keep, and they're pretty cheap. And so we do sell out of here, but not a lot of people come in asking for them, that's fine.
What would you say is the best-selling fish out of all these tanks?
Probably the angelfish. We do sell a lot of the angels from back here. Primarily out of this tank, because people would rather spend a little bit more money to get like a veil tail or a little bit larger angel as their like statement fish for, a medium-sized fish tank.
And then is this one also, what was the name?
The doctor fish, yeah.
Doctorfish.
The garas, yeah.
They do eat algae, right?
They do. Yeah, they're pretty good scavengers. They'll eat a little bit of everything, but they are pretty good algae eaters as well. Originally, we had like a big branch in here that looked like a root, which was pretty cool, but over time it just started to grow algae. So these rocks are pretty easy to clean if we have to. We just kind of rotate them, flip them over. Doesn't drop the pH, and it doesn't like a driftwood would. It adds a little bit of minerals into the water, so with how much soil we have, all of that rock isn't going to make an effect on the hardness level. She's a local fish breeder, so we try to buy fish only from reputable sellers. And so we only work really with Rhea. She breeds a lot of fish at her home, and one of them is the super red angelfish, which are really cool. And then she also does cories and a bunch of other types of angels. But these are like more uncommon, and we like to buy from her as a local hobbyist because they're really healthy. She's also a member of 2 local fish clubs, Scape and Coast Fish Club. And those are 2 local hobbyist clubs that we work really closely with. And we try to encourage the community to get involved by working with these local clubs. And so, we can take a look at some of the stuff she's got us. Like these lemon blue-eye plecos.
Got about 50 aquariums that we use for breeding here in Orange County. And the best part is everything's acclimated to Southern California water. So they're really healthy, and they go really great in your aquarium. Yes, nice new juvenile praecox. The food that I use in my hatchery is the Cool Color Flake from Brine Shrimp Direct. So that flake and that food is pretty much what I feed my entire hatchery. It's a really high-end, high-quality flake. Pretty much brings out the color in all the fish that I breed. So it's literally responsible for why these fish are so vibrant and have such really striking yellows and really nice reds.
These are moon jellies. They're saltwater jellyfish. We recently just fed them. We feed them baby brine shrimp. We hatch every day. We are a service and maintenance company as well. So we service a large jellyfish tank in downtown Long Beach. And because of that, we hatch baby brine shrimp every day. Next to it, we have the waterfall tank. That's from Aquaworks. And it's a underwater sand waterfall. So it creates this little cool illusion of something falling underwater.
That looks super cool. Do you have any fish in here?
No fish in there, but we do have shrimp. So you can see here on the moss ball, there's some
I see.
yellow fire shrimp.
How does the waterfall work?
So what happens is there is a pump in the back, and it pushes water down through plumbing inside, and it goes across the bottom and then back up. When it crosses the bottom, there's a slit in the plumbing, and that's where it's sucking in the sand and pushing it through. So the sand never goes through the pump, it's just pushed with the flow of the water. That way it doesn't ever get clogged or anything in the pump. We're currently upgrading, so by the time this comes out, we'll probably have a different beta section. We're upgrading to like a whole beta system, but right now this is what works for us. And we change the water. We have a schedule. We change it every like 2 to 3 days. I only really buy the more uncommon varieties of betas, and I don't typically get just the regular show male betas.
Do you sell these for different prices?
Yes, we do sell them for different pricing. It depends on the type, of course, but most of them are between $20 and $30.
What would you say is a rare type of betta?
These neons, these like neon marbles and neon galaxies, they have this fluorescence to them, so I would say that's pretty uncommon.
I thought these were glow bettas.
They are not technically glowfish betas. They're called neon marbles. So we water change them like every 2 days. And, we are on a strict water changing schedule. This is the baby brine shrimp. We have a 1 day and 2 day hatch out. So after the 1 day, they get 100% water change going to the 2 day. And then on the 2 day, that's when we feed out. So you can see this is our 2 day hatch out. And so that is all live baby brine shrimp in there. It is a drip acclimation. It's just that these drip lines are just airline tubing and curved rigid tubing that we use.
Are these all gonna go in this tank?
Yes, these are. So these are the assorted koi that I buy from Ria, but they're still pretty red compared to other types of angelfish. Yeah. Different types of small freshwater shrimp, the Caridina and Neocaridina species.
Okay.
So we have them separated by variety.
Yeah, we could start with this tank. These are the fire reds.
Yeah, no, so fire red cherry shrimp and some yellow cherry shrimp in there. We sell mostly, I would say red cherries are the most common type of Neocaridina that we sell. Some customers kind of go for that Skittles look where they want a bunch of different varieties, a bunch of different colors. But we do explain to customers you get what's called muddling. So after a few generations, all the colors mix and you usually end up with a bunch of brown or beige shrimp in there, which some people don't like. So we explain if you want to keep the lineage more one color, then you should stick to one color variation in there.
Yeah, and I noticed these are all mixed. Like you have the yellows and the reds. Would they ever cross?
They do, yeah, I would say they do, but we do rotate them out pretty quickly, like we sell pretty quickly, so breeding doesn't happen much in here. We do see it though, so you'll see in some of the tanks there are babies in there. We have crystal reds and blacks in here. We also have some black phantoms that are pretty cool, like that one. And then there may be, like a sun-kissed calico, that one in the back. It's bright orange.
I guess you could keep the crystal reds with cherry shrimp since they don't ever cross. And then these shrimp, they also need RO water, right?
Yes, so we use the same contra soil in all of these, so it keeps the pH down. We've also added some wood in there, keep the pH down, and then we do water changes with pure RODI water. And we change a little bit, about once a week, we do a small, like 10-20% water change. And then you can see that there's a baby there. Probably a black phantom baby.
You just feed them cucumbers?
Feeding them cucumbers is a really clean way to keep the tanks clean, and we do supplement. They also get bottom feeder tabs and shrimp foods, shrimp pellets. So they get a whole variety of foods, but the cucumber is a good grazing food for them and it keeps the water clean.
And what do we have in this one?
Those are Rilly shrimp, so the assorted Rillies, we have different varieties of Rillies. So you get that Rilly variation when they get bands of that transparent, translucent color in them, and so it kind of a break in the color variation. And so we keep the different varieties together. Blue velvets are probably the second most common variety that we sell. People really like that bright blue color. It's kind of difficult to see on the dark soil, but people have white sand that really pops out.
Yeah, these are all Neocaridinas.
And yes, so usually the ones that are like all solid colors, those are the Neocaridinas.
Right.
We have like snowballs and then pumpkins in there. We do separate the different types of sakuras. So we have some orange bee shrimp, red sakuras, and then we sometimes have orange sakuras as well.
Nice. Then these are just some other cherry shrimp.
Those are red sakura shrimp, so they're technically just a little bit brighter red. And then there's are there still some Masura black? I don't see any. And then the goldback yellow fire, those are really cool because the yellow fire, they get that bright gold stripe down their back.
Yeah, the goldbacks are super distinct.
Yes, absolutely. It's very striking. And then we have all of the orange bee shrimp in there.
And then
Some Bloody Marys.
what would you add as botanicals for shrimp tanks?
Most of these we just have maybe some small moss in there, some Java fern, and maybe some like anubias in there. So low light, easy to grow plants, slow growing plants in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of give them just a variety of plants to hang out on. Most of these are great at eating the biofilm, so they don't need a whole lot of food added to the tank if you've had plants and hardscapes like wood and stone in there. So they eat the biofilm growing off these. It's about once a week we do a 10 to 20% water change on them, and we just use straight RO. We do like a small little siphon. We just kind of hover above the gravel, not to really disturb it too much, but to just suck up the debris. Shrimp are actually pretty messy. They just poop a lot, so
Yeah, absolutely.
we're able to just kind of hover over the surface of the soil and suck out all the debris in there. We have an RODI machine, so we make our own reverse osmosis deionized water, and we're able to store about 1,300 gallons in the back of the store. We can take a look at that later, but we sell it to customers. It's 0 TDS RODI water, and that's what we use for a lot of our tanks as well. And these are super easy setups. There's just a sponge filter, so we run a big air pump and we connect it to the sponge filter. We're able to take those out and clean it if we need to.
All very low tech. And are these shrimp substrates?
It's called UNS Contra Soil. It is marketed as a plant substrate, but I would say that it is a good shrimp substrate as well. Yes, it does
with
take
pH,
a little bit
maybe.
longer. It does take a little bit longer to cycle initially when you're setting up tank with the contra soil, because there is residual ammonia and it does turn into nitrate, which is a nutrient, a macronutrient for your plants. But it does take typically about 2 weeks to fully cycle a tank. The RO system, so it's going through some water softeners, a big RO sleeve. It goes through the DI resin cylinders there. And then we have some big tanks upstairs, and that's where we're holding all of the RODI water.
Yeah, this is a huge system. Are they normally this big?
Maybe for a shop, but uncommon this large.
Does it cost a lot to run?
Yeah. Immersed plants in here, so it's usually like Java fern, anubias, a little bit hardier, lower light plants in here.
These are all like, you could grow these all immersed.
Yes, you could grow these immersed. They require a really humid environment, but
Yeah.
they can grow immersed. Yeah.
Do they ever have a hard time acclimating when you add them to a tank when they're fully underwater?
Not typically, because we mist it like this once every hour. So you're
Okay.
getting a ton of water. It gives us the ability to grow different types of plants in here.
Could you tell us about the history of the company?
Yeah, so Age of Aquariums, the store has been here since 2008. We're in Signal Hill, which is a little tiny city inside of Long Beach, like North Long Beach area. And so the owner opened the store in 2008, and we've been here ever since. He actually started the company Age of Aquariums back in the 80s, late 80s. He started servicing fish tanks, and he continued the maintenance, started hiring on extra employees, and he serviced and does maintenance, installs, and design for aquariums. And he's been doing that since the 80s. Then he was working out of his garage for a little bit. He bought a shop nearby that was just for, it wasn't open to the public, it was just for the circus. And then when he opened the shop in 2008, it became a whole part of the local fish store community here in Southern California. We service fish tanks all the way from the Inland Empire, like Ontario, all the way up to LA, all the way down to South Orange County, Dana Point. We service up and down the coast of LA and Orange County, and then inland as far as the Inland Empire. Something really cool that we have right now are the pipefish. Related to seahorses, they're a freshwater variety of kitefish. They're also pretty picky eaters, so we do feed them live foods. We give them a variety of live and frozen foods.
Yeah. I've never seen these in any freshwater community tank. Are they good community fish?
I would say just because they're so sensitive and very slow eaters that they don't do well with a lot of other fish, but they do well with like smaller tetras or schooling bottom feeder fish like hories. They are very peaceful, yes. Tons of neons and rummy nose tetras in there. And then on this side we have cardinal tetras.
What would you say is the easier one to keep?
Probably cardinal. Well, actually probably neons. But the cardinals, in my experience, tend to live a little bit longer. Just lifespan, a little bit longer lifespan. They get a little bit larger. They're both very similar.
I think neons tend to be a bit hardier when you add them to a new environment, but cardinals are like, they just live a bit longer.
Yeah. There are some apistos, some flagfish, some cories in there. I think there's some albino pygmies left in here in the back corner.
What about this guy?
That's a pandagara. So
Okay.
related to the doctorfish, the other garas that we saw, but they're just a little bit more fancier pattern on them. Those are flagfish. They're the only killifish that's native to North America.
Okay.
They are also known for eating black-beard algae. Yeah, allegedly. I would say that if you have a lot of other foods in the tank, that they're not going to really go after it. But they are known as one of the few fish that will eat black-beard algae.
There's also a couple coolie loaches in the back.
Oh yeah, there's coolie loaches. Sometimes you can't see them. They like to dig into the soil, the gravel in there. These are crebensis, dwarf cichlids. It's pretty full because the females will get these like bright pink belly on them. We have the glowfish. Not my favorite fish, but there is a community of people that like them, so we get to keep them. Mm-hmm. And then we have a variety of discus. This system runs pretty warm and it runs pretty acidic, and that's why we're able to eat discus in here. Our full sale that we get them from breeds them in tap water and feeds them pellets, so we don't have to focus on any like live foods or anything really fancy for these discus. They're a lot hardier than even just a few years ago. Discus are considered pretty sensitive. And I try to get a variety of patterns of pigeon bloods and sunbursts, blue diamonds and albinos, some red peckles.
There's also a nice school of corridors.
Yes, different types of cories. There's Melinis in there and sturbis. And these are the different types of rainbows. So these are the juvenile bosamani. So like in our large 750 gallon, we want to show what they could potentially look like. And these are the juveniles. So most people start out with these guys. A few years, they'll get to the adult, beautiful, bright orange colors. Discus are a little bit more sensitive fish to keep. I wouldn't say they're a great beginner fish. Because these are bred in tap water, they are easier to keep now than they would have been in the past. Different types of rainbows. These are yellow rainbow fish. We have some turquoise up here as well.
Do they get kind of big?
They do. They get maybe about 4 inches eventually. I've seen some that are really, really big, but they kind of max out around 3.5, 4 inches.
Some blue discus.
Beautiful blue diamond discus in there.
Are these rare discus?
The discus are not super rare, but sometimes certain patterns are more uncommon. So, I mean, the price tag on those, you're spending about $100 for one discus, which is pretty high, but that is pretty competitively priced compared to like other local fish stores around us.
Most of them are like $150, I think.
Yeah.
I
think for a decent sized discus, that's pretty good. More aggressive fish, so we have the South American cichlids, sharks, that kind of stuff, and then you have the African cichlids. South American cichlids like Grams and the Jack Dempseys. We have really cool, these are more uncommon, these Stiphodon gobies.
Oh yeah. Super colorful. Well, not that colorful, but...
For a goby, it's pretty... You don't see a lot of color in gobies.
I think Jack Dempseys get pretty aggressive as they get older.
Yeah. They do get pretty aggressive. There's some really nice German blue rand in there right now. Have that bright electric blue color, Bolivian rand. And we also have some other dwarf cichlids up there. This tank we have a little bit more aggressive stuff. We have fikers. There's some eels in there as well. Some larger blue acara in there. The vikers are so cool. They look like little dragons.
Yeah, I heard they could also get long.
They do. They get pretty big, and they can be aggressive just in the fact that they're kind of pulpers. So anything that can fit in their mouth, they'll eat. It's not like they're constantly grabbing the fish. It's just if they think they can eat it, they'll try to eat it.
These are some of the African cichlids.
Different types of African cichlids. We mostly just get the Paguna and peacock cichlids. I try to keep just a small variety. I think that most people just don't have the space to keep a large aggressive tank anymore. And so now people kind of focus on the smaller natural aquascape tanks.
They're actually herbivores, even though they are pretty aggressive, so don't really keep plants with them.
What would you feed them?
We feed them frozen spirulina brine, so it's a good variety of protein, and also the spirulina adds a lot of vegetation for them. And we have our goldfish. Again, goldfish aren't that popular, but for some people that don't want to keep a heated tank, or they kind of have a low maintenance show tank, you know, a long tank with just a few different types of goldfish in there. We have goldfish, and then we keep a few different types of koi, mostly butterfly koi in there. And my favorite right now are new pandas. They have the cool patterns on them.
Do you have any ranchus?
There are some ranchus up here, some small little red ranchus, and then we have some bubble eyes in here as well. Goofy little guys. They're so messy that don't recommend keeping a lot in a system or a tank, but they don't really require a lot. They don't need a heater. We don't keep anything terrestrial here, but we do keep the aquatic frogs.
Who's your African dwarf frog?
African dwarf frogs. We have blonde and the regular. So the blonde ones are the more white color.
And do they eat any fish?
They could potentially eat small fish, but they have very, very poor eyesight.
Yeah.
They are a little bit slower eaters, so it would be difficult for them to be able to catch a fish unless it was already injured or already slow.
I think what happens is sometimes they might see a fish and they think that it's food or something, and they just latch onto it.
Exactly, yeah. Something cool about the aquatic frogs is if you get males, they will also croak, and even though they're croaking underwater, you can still hear the croaking noise, and it kind of just sounds like a little like whirring noise. It actually kind of sounds like a filter gurgling.
Yeah.
Kind of
I've
cool.
seen some videos on that.
Rabbit snails. They're a really cool type of freshwater aquatic snail.
These are quite big, actually.
They are, yeah. And they'll get a little bit bigger than that, and they come in a variety of like different colors. The golden ones are the most popular. There's also white spotted and yellow spotted. These are mosquito fish, so
Okay.
the reason we keep them is for like pest maintenance for ponds or for like outdoor tanks. They are a type of live bear that does not require a heater.
I used to catch these in a creek.
Yep.
They're very common for that. I think they eat a lot of the mosquito larvae, so if somebody wants to control like their pond or something, they would just add a bunch of these in.
You can usually around here contact like your city vector control, and vector control will bring them out to you for free. Down here we have mystery snails. We also have these giant ram's horn snails right now.
Do you want to tell us about the lobster?
Yeah, sure. They're just freshwater crayfish. Crawdads, same thing. And we get the different types of colors. We get vanilla, which is the white. We get the electric blue, and then we get the red and orange, different types of lobsters. And then occasionally they do have babies in here. So you can see that small one there. That one's probably about 10 weeks old. We have a ton of babies, and we actually were selling them. Now there's only a few left. Platies in there. This is our live bear system, so we keep mollies, platies, guppies, swordtails all together in the system. We run a little bit of salt through there, and that's why we're able to keep the gobies. So gobies typically prefer slightly brackish water, and the live bears do well in the little tiny bit of salt in the water. Just kind of helps their immune system.
And do these guys breed in here a lot?
Yes, they do. Again, it's not something we have on purpose, but that's why we try to keep some like fake decorations and plants in there. That way, babies, once they hatch, they're able to or once they're born, they're able to hide a little bit.
Then a lot of these live bears, they just populate really quick.
In the past, like live bears, guppy tanks, that might have been like a really common thing. Not a lot of people are into live bears right now. I think they're more into like the schooling tetras, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Something that goes well with the natural aquascape, and something that does well in a little bit more acidic water, where these guys they prefer a little bit more slightly alkaline, maybe around 7.5 to 8.2. And then here we have the semi-aggressive fish. We have barbs and gouramis. We also have the pea puffers in here. Big size pea puffers in there.
Are these fully grown?
They'll get a little bit larger actually, but not much.
Got it.
Most fish stores, you would probably not see pea puffers that large for sale. They're usually about a quarter of that size. The dwarf gouramis as well for the smaller tanks. The barbs are also schooling fish, but I think they're just less common than tetras because they're a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
But you have some pretty cool snakeskin barbs in here. These two systems are mostly tetras, so schooling fish. Different varieties of tetras, and I try to keep a good amount of each type in here. So.
And I see there's also some medacas. These are kind of popular nowadays.
Yes, the rice fish.
Yeah.
They are a little bit more popular recently because they also don't require a year. A lot of hobbyists are getting into breeding them themselves using like a mop method.
Do you find a lot of people looking for these?
More than in the past, yes.
Some ember tetras?
Ember tetras, those are a huge seller for us because they stay small.
Yeah.
Again, I think we're kind of seeing in the industry right now, we're seeing a shift away from like larger tanks and more to like smaller nano tanks, more natural scapes. And these guys do really well in smaller tanks because of their size, of course, and people like the bright color of them, so we sell a lot of ember tetras.
I've been getting into these recently.
Yeah.
They're very easy to keep too.
Really easy to keep. We also have these little sparkling gouramis, also a great nano fish. So what we kind of encourage our customers to do is for their size tank, you get 1 or 2 statement fishes. So that's a fish that's going to stand out a little bit more, something that's not particularly a schooling fish.
Centerpiece.
And then, exactly, a centerpiece fish. And then you follow up with a school or schools of different types of smaller background fish in there. And so those little sparkling gouramis are a good statement fish, maybe like a pair of them. Bristlenose plectos in there.
Some baby bristlenose.
Babies, yeah.
These are Congo tetras, right?
Those are red-eye tetras.
Oh, red-eye tetras,
Yes.
right.
They're super hardy type of tetra.
Or they're kind of aggressive.
They can be, especially when they get bigger, because they are a larger type of tetra. Yeah, I usually recommend adding them all at one time. Yeah, we have some larger species of tetras, like larger albino Buenos Aires and black skirt tetras. Yeah. High fin surface that we sell here, they're not quite as vibrant or as large as the one in our display tank, but that's why we like to have them on display so people can see the potential in them. And then we're able to sell them at this size at a reasonable cost. Pretty hardy. Also a really big seller for us because of the bright red color on them. Let's see, I want to show you one more thing. Something super cool are these catfish in here. These are the Pydratus catfish. They stay a little bit smaller than other types of catfish, and they have the cool white outline around their fins.
Oh, yeah.
And like most catfish, they like caves or like hiding spots, but they like to hide in the plant. You can see them all coming out.
There we go.
It's a pretty cool type of catfish that we like to keep.
So these fish don't have eyes.
Those are blind cave tetras. So their natural habitat are dark caves with no light found in like Central and South America. And so they've evolved to not need their eyesight. And they have a really, really fantastic sense of smell. So when we feed in there, they just go crazy on the bottom and kind of hone in on any food that we actually take.
Is that how they get around?
Yeah, and so they don't really need their eyesight anymore because they have that really developed sense of smell. They're not super aggressive, but they can kind of hold their own in the tank surprisingly. It was really cool. In November, I went to Cancun and I got to snorkel with a bunch of freshwater fish and these like freshwater cenotes. And they had tons of tetras and blind cavefish, and then also some different types of cichlids, like different types of American cichlids in the tanks, in the cenotes. And it was really cool to be able to see like stuff that we have here and be able to swim with out in the wild. I've always had fish in my household, and I've always been really interested in fish. And I recently asked my mom how we ended up with a fish tank in our house. And she told me that when she was living in Long Beach, she went to a laundromat, and outside of the laundromat there were some goldfish in the gutter. And so she got a cup of water and she rescued 8 goldfish from the gutter. And she took them home and she eventually got a tank for them. And I was raised with these little goldfish. Eventually, when I turned 15, I wanted my own fish tank. So I saved a bunch of my Christmas and birthday money and I bought my own 29-gallon bow front tank. And I had a few angelfish in there and a few live bearers. And that was my introduction into the hobby. I was just going to Petco, PetSmart, and also one other local fish store near me in Huntington Beach. And I just really got into fish so much that I went to school in Hawaii for marine bio. I just always loved the ocean and I always loved fish, so I did the schooling in marine bio. I worked at a pet store in Hawaii and I was able to work with the aquatics there and get a little bit hands-on introduction into aquarium keeping. And once I moved back here where I was born and raised, I contacted Dan, and he just happened to be looking for somebody to help him in the shop. And so I was able to start working here about 10.5 years ago. I have been trying to make a difference in the hobby. One thing I've really tried to engage in as a store manager
is working with local fish clubs and local hobbyists, because I want to be a local fish store that's a staple in the hobby. This hobby is something that is very good for mental health. I really like working with Coast Fish Club and Scape Club. So Coast is a local fish club in Southern California. They have a meeting once a month, and you can find info on them online. And then Scape Club is Southern California Aquatic Plant Enthusiasts. And the hobby is, it's just such an integral part of my life now. It's something that I'm involved in every day as a store manager and also as a hobbyist. I have a few small tanks at home. I like to be able to maintain them and talk about them, but it's difficult because I'm always here doing maintenance. So like at the end of the day, I don't really want to go home and do my own maintenance. So now I just have a few small tanks. I've taken down all of my large tanks, but it's a really great hobby for beginners to get into because it's a creative outlet for a lot of people, especially the aquascaping aspect of it. But it's also something where it can be interesting for those that are more practical and are into like sciences like chemistry and biology. And so it's really unique to find a hobby that meshes both the science and artistic side of something. And that's why I love especially aquascaping so much.